game for you.
So I'm here with Sadokist, which you guys probably know from such streams as PGL and Major League X Games, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, in Aspen.
And he's here at Copenhagen Games as well, casting with Vendetta and Samurai.
Yep. And Anders in Spirit.
They're going to join tomorrow?
He might come by. He's on down
I heard
duty.
rumors about Anders coming.
I don't think he's going to cast. I think he's just going to come by and say hi to everyone.
Of course.
I spoke to Sim earlier and said that Anders would not come by. He didn't have the time.
I think someone's trying to tell everyone that, but I don't know. It's possible. He told me he was going to try to, but we'll see. He may not.
But he just became a dad like a few months ago, right?
Not even. Like 2 days before Katowice.
Yeah. You talked about that with HL3, I think.
Yeah.
And it was hard to leave the baby behind.
Yeah, it would be.
Okay, but we're with Sadokist Anders, and how is it here at Copenhagen compared to the other LAN events you've been to?
So it's really chill, first off. There's one event I do in Canada that's called ETS in Montreal. That's really similar to this, actually. It's like an open tournament. Anyone can sign up. Team Dynamic used to go to it every year because obviously PEX was fairly close to Montreal. AZK is in Montreal. And they used to just dominate it, but it was like really laid back. A lot of it, like mid-tier community players were there, and like you could actually just socialize a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that, except it's in Europe, so it's like a scale up. So we actually have a prize pool here. The production's actually reasonable. The stream looks great so far, whereas in Montreal it's like literally me pressing stop and start on the computer. But it's laid back. I mean, you take the other road. I was at Star Ladder last weekend, and like I was in full makeup for the camera, the lights. I was in my suit, and I had to be like in a certain spot at a certain time every day. And same with MLG, same thing. So it's a whole different approach to that. So obviously different teams are here. We don't have, the top 6 of the 7 teams.
No, but it's been a pretty packed schedule as well because, Fnatic has been just taking time off altogether.
Yeah, and Envious is taking this week off too.
Yeah, of course, and you understand why, because with 6 LAN events probably upcoming in a row.
Well, and we talked about that before we started this too, is VP. Katowice took a little break, I think, for a week. Yeah, Gfinity, that's right.
And then
Gfinity, Star Ladder, they're here. They go to EPL Cologne next weekend, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They go to ESEA, and then if they qualify for DreamHack Bucharest, that's the next weekend. So, like, that's 6 in a row for them. It's crazy. I know actually Freiburg said at Star Ladder that he was looking forward to going home and taking 3 days off and just taking this like complete break from Counter-Strike.
I don't understand why.
Yeah, but he couldn't. They had, I think he said something like 4 online matches that they had to play. So the schedule is definitely really tight.
Running at the same time.
Yeah, the schedule is really tight right now.
Yeah.
Very, very tight.
But that's probably how the scene is actually going if we keep moving forward. If we keep leaning up against like the Dota scene, because that's also about doing it.
Yeah.
And that's always packed.
Yeah, and I actually know that there's another league being announced next week that's online that'll just add, again, they're going to try and schedule around things, but like it's so hard when you get like an ESEA or like a FACEIT who has like this once a week match that you have to schedule around everything else already. So it's tough. It's definitely tough. I mean, at what point is it too much? That's the question.
Exactly. That's the question Dota players are asking themselves as well. But we had to talk about CS now.
Yeah.
But how do you see the scene evolve as it is now? Have we reached the peak yet, or is it going to be even further than what is now?
Without going into too much detail, there are a few announcements that are expected this year that should increase things like prize pool and emphasis on major tournaments, which will be nice because it'll kind of take, because right now we're sort of
talking about international for CS or
no, it won't be an international. I don't think we're going to hit that. I don't think Valve really wants to do that, but maybe another major is going to be announced. But it'll just give more emphasis to the schedule, because right now there is a lot of mid-level tournaments that are kind of all clashing, and it kind of takes the emphasis off them. As a fan, it's almost too much to follow, but if you have these peaks, I'll take Red Eye when he did the reflections with Thor, and he made the reference to how tennis has the Grand Slams. So even so, there's like every weekend there's a tournament. You can focus on the ones you want. We're kind of heading into that, which is nice.
Which makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, teams are going to have to start picking and choosing what tournaments they want to do.
That makes room for the lesser teams.
Other teams,
exactly.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the good things about this event. Like we just saw Team Acer play Who'd they play? Shark Gaming. Yeah, so Swede versus Danish teams, two non-known teams, and Acer's obviously a newer sponsor that's trying to get known again. Threat's team, trying to come back into it. Yeah, and this is a tournament where they have a chance to actually get some notoriety and make a splash. They were on the stream, which is good for them. And if they place well, it's a feather in their cap that they can say like, hey,
this is an event to actually have a chance to place, I guess, top 8 or maybe top 4 if they actually.
Yeah, if they do top 4, they're going to do really well.
Basically, we got BP and TSM as the clear favorites, and then we got LGB and Gravity and Flipside and the teams like that.
Yeah.
But the lesser known teams, especially for Danish teams here in Denmark.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And it was actually interesting to see like Dignitas go up against Copenhagen Wolves earlier.
Pretty good match.
Yeah, it was a good match. Unfortunately, we didn't get to stream that one, but like Danish pride, there's a lot of Danish people here. That's the other thing about this event. Like the event in Montreal, everyone's just there strictly to game, and it's like open to many different games. But here, everyone's like so focused on Counter-Strike that like the main stage where we've been doing the stream has been packed every single game, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, even the other stages, basically just for cosplay and announcements, and then female.
And that's had a crowd too.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's actually another thing to mention is that there is a female tournament here because there's not a lot on their circuit. We saw ESL finally put one in. They have this, they have ESWC. I want to say there's a fourth one they have, but I can't remember.
Yeah, there is a fourth one, but I can't remember the name.
But like Karma and UB United both came over from the States because like this is a chance for them to come.
This is a major for the girls.
I mean, it's just another land for them to come to, and I mean, it's good. I'm supportive of female gaming. I think it's important. I think if they want to exist, that they should have the right to do that. Every other sport has it, so
I agree.
Why not? So
yeah. What's your opinion of have you seen any of the Danish teams compete except the known teams and then Shark Gaming?
Obviously I've seen Copenhagen Wolves and Team Dignitas in the PGL qualifier. I haven't seen Dignitas yet at this event, although I do know they beat Copenhagen Wolves. I'm interested to see without Fetish how MSL is doing as their in-game leader. Shark Gaming, that was the first time I've seen them. I've seen C play.
With Claim and the other guys.
Yeah, I've seen C play, and actually who did they beat today that was an upset? Flipside. They beat Flipside. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Again, I didn't see that match because I think I was casting when that was going on, but I looked up the HLTV score.
Yeah.
And obviously TSM I've seen hundreds of times.
Yeah.
So one problem continues to exist, though, I will say, for Denmark teams, and that's just getting to the finish line. Shark Gaming had the same problem, so unfortunately they need to overcome that.
Sandler didn't forget to mention that.
I also did not forget to mention that. I thought I was going to get mugged when I left the casting area.
Yeah, and Device was in the crowd as well.
We were making fun of Device while he was watching.
And KGB was as well.
Yeah.
I saw Device's face.
It was actually worse because Kerrigan came over and was staring at us and didn't know. And then he leaves and Semler's like, yeah, go cheer for the Danes. I was like, yeah, just don't strat call or they'll lose for sure. And he turned around and was like, what? But yeah, it's fine. We're friends.
It seems like a Danish problem now because Shark Gaming probably should have won that.
And the interesting thing is that the old problem for Danish teams used to be that they were always super CT-sided. Now they're getting T-sided rounds.
11 rounds as T and then still couldn't close it out.
Yeah, no, and same thing with... Okay, well, I guess the VP game at Starladder was actually both teams being CT-sided when TSM played VP, and they won it in the overtime on overpass, but...
It was still called a choke from TSM because they were 11-4 and 12-3.
Yeah. And they won the second round pistol and then got eco'd.
Exactly.
But that game, I guess, doesn't really hold up to the point where it's come back T-sided, but it's definitely... I would say going more favorsome for them on T-sides lately, even in the Dignitas roster with MSL leading them now without Fetish. They seem a little bit better on that side, but they just can't close games. I don't know why. If they get over that, I mean, TSM is due for a land win.
Yeah, because it actually seemed like Kerrigan, he brought what they actually needed. Like a more aggressive T-side.
Yeah.
Especially T-side, because Fetish, it seemed like they had a very, very good CT side on every map, pretty much.
Awesome CT
but
side.
The T-side
one of the best CT sides, I would say.
Yeah, especially on the maps which was heavily CT sided, like New York.
Yeah.
They were known as...
Until Nip threw that out the window at ESL. But But traditionally,
that was a lot of fetish.
Actually, and I'm actually really interested to see how TSM is going to fare once Nuke's out of the map pool, once everyone phases it out and Train comes in. Because Train's another map that traditionally would have been CT-sided on CSGO.
Yeah, now it's
but the new version is crazy,
yeah.
and with smokes on the A site, I think the Ts can rush in and get plants really quickly.
But that's going to be in the next major, which
I would
is
say so,
Cologne at the moment. Unless they
I forget what
another
league.
one.
One of the leagues, I can't keep track, but one of the leagues already announced they're switching to Train.
ESA probably.
Not ESCA, not yet. No.
They usually.
No, ESCA still runs season as well. So
when are we going to see Tuscan? Are you a fan of Tuscan?
I like Tuscan a lot. I think Tuscan's one of the better maps that's not in the pool, actually.
I agree. But it's been in the alpha stage.
The problem is, it's been released now, but the problem is that Valve obviously brought in their maps. So we saw, aside from Season's FMPO&E,
Yeah.
which so Cash was an exception because it was already played in previous versions of Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
So even though it's not Valve made, it kind of got grandfathered in. But Overpass was obviously Valve made.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple other really good maps that are actually worthy of, I would say, at least putting on scrim servers and letting pro players give input. And Valve's just won't do it. So Tucson's probably one of them. What's another one? I would say that the new version of Fire goes with that, because obviously Tucson is mill.
Yeah.
Fire, the new version where they took out the fence and middle's pretty good. Season's great, and I know FMPO&E, I think just yesterday, released a new update for it again. There's a couple other maps that could come in.
What's your take on just making the map pool bigger and just...
I've been all for that. I think it needs to happen. Because right now we're doing a veto process where we're getting 3 maps for best of 3s, and every map is covered.
Yeah.
There's no like wild card aspect to it. So it also means that newer teams don't have as much maps that they can use to their advantage.
No, exactly. You pretty much know what teams will ban which maps.
Yeah.
Up front.
Yeah, no, I think that I've always said that I would like to see a 12 map pool. That might be a bit much.
Yeah, no,
I don't know if there are 12 maps that are worthy right now. So let's see. We put in Train. Well, we put in Train, that's 8. We put in Tucson, that's 9.
And let Nuke stay, right?
Yeah, let Nuke stay.
And then Train, Tucson, Fire.
Fire if we want to go in. Season for sure. So
we
that's
got 11.
That's 11. Yeah, and then I mean
we can probably find
Contra,
one more
but the Contra version in CS:GO sucks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to redo that map entirely.
But it should be possible. Fantastic. I think it needs a
Well, isn't
pretty
it
big
Bizarre or
rework.
whatever? How do you say that one? Bizarre?
Yeah.
It's the one that's in that map. It would need work
Yeah,
because
it's
like
not-
the connection points are really narrow, but it's actually
But
decent.
they actually reworked it compared to the
Oh, on
1.6
Aztec, you
version.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Aztec, has been reworked. You'll never fix Aztec unless you put a whole backdoor into the A site.
Yeah, because it's
still
so
too linear.
CT-sided, yeah.
You'd have to put a whole roundabout way into
What
the front.
what member are you talking about?
Bazaar,
Oh, Bazaar,
or whatever, that's
yeah.
on the Vanguard operation.
Yeah, Bazaar.
The basic structure of that map is actually similar to Mirage and Nuke, where it's 2 bomb sites, here's your mid, here's your connectors.
Yeah.
They're really narrow and it would need work, but I mean,
There's a lot of
worth
new maps which
consideration.
is pretty similar to some of the ones which are already made. But it's just different textures.
I'm trying to. There's another map that was played in scrims. I can't remember what it was. There's another map in North America that someone made that was actually really
North
good.
America, they're always the first one to play
bring
the
in
new
maps.
maps.
Cash
No,
was
it's-
always in the roster
as well
in
as
season.
in Pox and Sivo and ECA when they play.
Sivo has Tucson in the pool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No Face It used to back in the summer, I think, at least for Europe. And then they removed it and added Season instead.
And I think everyone
big disappointment.
expected once Season made it into a map pack for Valve that it was just gonna like get its way into a major. Valve never gave it the chance. So
What's your opinion of the new season compared to the old season?
how, what new or what are
We are
talking
talking about the
just the first version from FMPO&E.
Yeah.
Like first things first, I was glad he fixed the roof on J.
Yeah.
Because it was all so frigging white that if you put a scope in there, even with an M4, you couldn't tell. Like there was no depth perception to it.
No.
But I do like that he widened it out. I think Horseshoe was a lot better for taking over the A site from that secondary spot. Catwalk stayed roughly the same.
Yeah.
I know he just extended the roof for the boost spot, which I think is good because that spot was super predictable. You had to check like one panel,
Yeah.
whereas before you actually had to check the whole roof. B was a little better when it was opened up. The main entrance to B, the backside was the same, but overall I think it was better. The only thing I didn't like on the new version was the crossbars on the vents when you come around from jail and you're peeking through jail. They lined up exactly with the CT's like height.
Yeah.
He needed to like stagger them by like a pixel so you could see through them better. So, or maybe it was just my view model, but I always had them right in my face, so I had to like crouch to see under them. So, but I mean overall I think it was an improvement. Wider map. I mean, that's the thing. Wider maps are fitting the gameplay because it's faster. So look at the new terrain. It's wide open. And I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with Nuke. They're just going to like crack open squeaky. Maybe they still leave the door there, but they'll crack open radio halls for sure. They have to. Like spots like that need to get wider. That make it so one smoke can't shut everything down.
I don't understand how they reworked Nuke compared to the 1.6 one, especially with the bends, where now you can jump down and you can run around them. Compared to 1.6 where you actually had to crouch, because that made it a lot worse for CTs. Now you can.
I mean, it depends on what you want from the map. If you want to change the way that
it seems like Valve wanted to be a bit closer between CTs and Ts.
That's what they want to get out of it. But the reason they made the vents tall, from my impression, is because they wanted the game speed to be quicker. Because when you're crouching, everything feels slow. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it does.
I think they just need to fix outside vents, maybe. I don't think someone posted a video. Maybe it was Liquid Adren. I think it was Adren. Where if they just made it crouch on either side and then you could still run back and forth. I mean, that could work. Because if you have to crawl the whole thing, I'm the kind of guy that I get impatient. I'm just like, screw this. Like,
I agree.
So, I mean, I don't know. There's so much you can do with that map.
It just seems so CT-sided at the moment, so something has to happen before it can go back to competitive.
I mean, I still think Overpass has a lot of problems, personally. So
I've just seen the Overpass today after they reworked it again with the new boxes.
It looks better.
Compared to
that front truck sucked. It was way too cluttered. I think I was quite vocal about it on a number of streams, but like you had to come out, you had to check like come around the backside of the truck, check the first over by Optimus Prime, like in the backside, check the back angle, make sure your teammate's watching so now you can peek out so you don't get peeked from electrical, and check the stairs. Like it was like 4 angles you had to cover.
And you still couldn't smoke the whole thing off by the back truck at the stairs. No.
And they limited the ability to get a Molotov in there because you had to actually walk out further, and you couldn't get an op shot at the back. You had to actually walk into the site to find the angle.
Yeah, indeed.
So, I mean, I think I like the B side a lot. The A side sucks.
The B side hasn't changed a lot though.
Who's playing? Does anyone know who's playing?
Dignitas versus what? Dignitas.
Yeah, Dignitas.
Why are they playing?
Oh, and flip side.
So Dignitas. I thought Dignitas won a. That was the winner break.
It looks like Flipside's jerseys. That looks like Markelov, but I can't tell. They're too far away from my eyes to work.
It's Flipsides.
It is Flipside?
I can't see the other one.
It is?
So that's Dignitas.
That's definitely Cabu.
Yeah, that's Dignitas. Yeah, Dignitas versus Flipside.
I thought that Dignitas won their first match and then won
I thought they did
against
as well. But this might seed them. I don't know. Someone told me and I forget. This is the thing, this tournament's got such a huge bracket, like I can't follow the whole thing, it's crazy. HLTV.org. Tell me what's going on.
I agree.
Shameless plug.
Do you guys have something to add? Something you want to ask?
Yeah, I would like to ask, because a lot of our community, they really play pucks a lot.
Yep.
And we're trying to make scrim more of a thing, because we have this feeling that scrim in CSGO compared to 1.6 has been down since matchmaking, right?
Yeah.
Because in matchmaking you can go 5 premates against the puck, and that's pretty much what it turns down to in Denmark.
And 1.6 it was IRC and stuff like
exactly.
that.
You have to get a gather bot and stuff, really get geeky at it. So we want to try and make it more of a mainstream thing when you play scrims outside. I know ESEA Faceit gives you some possibilities to do it.
Faceit doesn't actually, because even if you're 5-stack, you're not necessarily getting in a team.
ESEA has the matchmaking now.
And they do a really great job on that.
Yeah.
It's not that used in Europe though.
Exactly.
In
NA
it is.
There's actually a lot of like people that dislike it in Europe for whatever reason. But yeah, North America, it's the go-to. If you don't have ESCA in North America, you're like not a competitor.
Yeah, I know. Back when we used to scrim, we never used TSA because there were normally one team, and it was some shitty team anyway.
Yeah.
So we have this Facebook group. I know that nothing actually. No, Sean Garris talked about it at Katowice.
Yeah.
That Europe has this Facebook group where they talk together and get these schedules planned beforehand, and they start at 12 o'clock and then compete until midnight or something like that. When NA you start at 6 or 7 like that.
Yeah.
So how do you see that as a North American compared to Europe?
Yeah, because you travel a lot and you know a lot about Europe and North America, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Europe there's so many more active teams that it's easier to go for a scrim route. There's also a lot more, like, for example, you guys have Danish teams, so you're all living close together, so your time zones are all close together. Whereas if you look at like a North American pro team, you've got, so we'll use Cloud9. We've got Mike Shroud, who's in Ontario.
Yeah.
We've got Semphis, who's way out in Vancouver, so there's 3 hours between them. Nothing's in California, so he'd be similar to Semphis, but like your ping difference right there is like close to, I would say, 80 ping between Shroud and him, depending on where they're routing to. I can't remember where everyone else lives for right now, but you get the idea. So like in North America, it's actually hard to have these scrims preset because everyone's so spread out. So if you have a work schedule, because not all of them are on a salary, C9's one of the fortunate teams that are, you gotta wait for them to get off work. So if that's 5 o'clock Western time, so where I live, I'm 4 hours ahead of that. That's 9 o'clock for me before he's even off work at home. So North America, pugs are the go-to. But in Europe, it seems like pugs and gathers aren't as common. It's more like teams just constantly scrimming, like grinding it out against other teams, and like again, it's because they're all like in a confined area.
But okay, in Europe, it's the pro guys, like I know in Denmark, for main Wolves, Stigmatast and TSM are the only guys who actually get paid for it.
Yeah.
But everyone else is plugging until everybody else
is online.
Yeah, because I know I used to practice against Flipside and teams like that. And we normally start around 5 o'clock if we could, because people still have work to do.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to live by ourselves otherwise. So it's like NA, but for the pro teams, they actually have a lot of people to actually practice against.
Yeah.
When NA, there's a limit of this amount of teams who actually get paid.
I mean, there's 5 time zones across North America, yet it's all one group. Like here, at least there's a divide sort of between Eastern and Western Europe.
Yeah, and how many teams in NA is actually getting paid to do there's only Cloud9 and...
Getting paid enough to make it full time?
Yeah, to actually...
iBuyPower would have been. Cloud9 would be, Liquid would be up there, CLG would be up there. I don't know their actual salaries. Obviously, winnings comes into it a lot.
Because CLG is a pretty
Elevate
big
doesn't,
brand.
Yeah, you would think. Obviously, they haven't won a lot, so I don't know what their salary is. But I mean, you'd think Elevate would be close, but I don't think they're enough to make it full time. But actually, I know they're not, because Storm's going to miss Sivo land because of work, so Hiko's stepping in.
So I would say 3 team who actually gets paid enough to
make it a full-time job. Yeah. And that's the other part of it. Like if North America was doing better, Envious is a North American sponsor, TSM is a North American sponsor, but where did they pick up teams? Because they had to. There's no market right now. So NA is in a bit of a shambles. 5 of the best players just got banned. Rest in peace. But yeah, it's going to take a while for it to sort itself out and fix itself.
What's your take on the whole match fixing thing? Because it seems like there's a number of other guys who actually also match fixed or did some stupid stuff, but didn't get the same penalty as Swag and Steel and
because they were first. Valve wanted to set an example.
It's still permanent, right?
They'll lift it at some point. They have to. I mean, I'm speculating. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, because people expect it to be lifted. But if it isn't, it seems a bit rough.
Yeah, it would be super rough. Especially Epsilon got, 12 months? That was it.
Like the German team, I can't remember the name.
Well, it was ESC from Poland, but then that got lifted.
Yeah,
that's Gamers 2 now.
Yeah, there was a German team as well.
No, that's not.
No,
that's
Gamers 2.
That's not Gamers 2.
They had nothing to do with it. My Revenge side. No.
No, what's the Polish team now that's going under that? They're under a different name. It's not Gamers 2.
No, they got unbanned for it. They got lifted.
I know. That's the point I'm making. So what I mean by that is that Valve's actually being fair. They're not just saying like that's our rule. we're done, may actually take the time to look into it. I think the bans will be lifted against I by Power. I don't know how soon. Probably be around the same time that the Epsilon bans come up, I would say.
It would be sad for, especially a talent like Swag, because I know he's still
18, young, has a huge amount of potential.
And he was
just starting to get good again
as well. I know I watched him back in ED days with nothing. And the other guys, can't remember Frog, I think he was back then as well.
Yep.
And Swag was a huge talent already back then.
Yep.
And he was slowly starting to perform better and better when he joined Iron Power. And they were pretty much taking over the NA scene as far as I could see. They beat Cloud9 and regular.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were, and I was really excited to see them with Hiko because that roster could have been really good. I think for Swag, I can't see him being the one to be like, let's match fix. But he's totally not the one to step up and be like, no, I'm not doing this.
No.
So he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And that's the picture he painted afterwards. That's what he told
knowing his personality and how quiet he is, like I can totally believe that. So I do feel the worst for him. I'm glad Skadoodle didn't get banned because I actually think Skadoodle would be like, I'm not going to do this, but he also wouldn't be like, I'm going to stop this. Because what are you going to do?
How do you stop that?
Exactly. You three are throwing. I know you're throwing. What do I do? Like,
are you going to call the admins before?
Right. It's going to make it even worse. Like, you're better to just like put your tail down and hide and hope it goes away. But
it didn't seem like they actually got away with it.
Yeah, until DeBorn was an idiot.
But that's what happens when people get to level.
I mean, I'm kind of glad in a way they got caught because now it sends a message to everyone else.
It seemed like it was actually a huge problem because teams had the option, because of Cisco launch especially, to bet skins over several accounts.
Well, Sir Scoot said like the whole argument against it and stuff. But yeah. I mean, it's a fragile thing. I don't bet. I bet like 10 cents in my entire life. I don't really have an inventory to bet anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. But
how do you see it against, young people? Because there's plenty of below 18-year-olds.
Oh man, I don't know. How do you control that too? I'm sure there's lots of there's underage drinking that goes on everywhere. Like people are gonna try to do it.
Not here in Denmark.
Not Denmark. No, Denmark's good. I have yet to see a 16-year-old walking around with a beer, but I will give them one. No kidding.
So I would really like to know, because you do have a really big insight in CSGO.
Yeah.
And you have it on a North American level and a European level. You have talked to Valve as well, right? So, sort of, some of the devs.
Indirectly, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I've had contact, but nothing major.
So I'm curious to, where do you hope CSGO will be in a year, and where do you predict it will be in a year? The whole pro scene.
The thing is, I don't know right now, because it's like, without going into detail about rumors that I've heard, CSGO itself is going to, like, obviously this patch is different, we can talk about that, but the game's established enough now that not much more will change.
No.
Small things in the meta, small tweaks. Tech9 hopefully gets another slight nerf. Scout jumping would be nice to see go, but in terms of where the game is as in terms of a competitive sport, again, I think we're going to see more like major tournaments pop up. I think there'll be at least one more major that comes up.
So 4 majors.
I would say 4 majors a year is not all out of the cards. We're going to see a lot more $100,000 plus tournaments come up. Obviously, ESEA increased their prize pool, Faceit increased theirs, SIVO increased theirs. MLG and SIVO, that's an interesting one in North America, because actually what's happening over there right now is MLG merging with SIVO means that there's a divide in the streaming. MLG is trying to buy teams, pull them over, because they actually need another game right now. The console's slowly suffocating, and they're desperate to get into CS. I won't say they're desperate. I mean, they're a big company. Desperate's probably a harsh word, but they'd really like to get into CS. But the problem is it creates a divide, which for people with exclusivities, streamers and such, it's really hard. I know Elevate switched over. Torque did originally, but obviously Steel got banned. So Mo instantly went back to Twitch. All his viewers came back. Elevate was with MLG. They don't get a lot of viewers. The girls team Karma that's here was actually the Elevate girls team. They all actually left Elevate just so they could go back to streaming on Twitch. There's a weird thing going on there. And again, as me as a caster, like, I'm not signed with anyone right now, fortunately, but I know like Twitch has like been talking to me a little bit. If I go there, that means I can't do any more MLG events. So, I mean, there's a weird divide right now in North America, and there's some big arguments over that. But in terms of actual competition, we're going to see a lot more picking and choosing from top teams, where secondary teams are going to have a chance to also make a living, which is great, because then we have a foundation.
That's good for the whole scene.
Yeah, we have a foundation then, right? Like, it's not just our top team, so if it goes poof, all our major tournaments are gone, everyone's done. No, we still have a pool of teams we can pick from. But I think another major is definitely going to happen. I don't know who's going to do it. I don't know where it's going to be. Wouldn't be surprised if someone in North America took a bite at it. But
how do you see CS compared to Dota and League when we talk about the Asian teams? Because what CS right now is missing, that's the whole, that's Asia, pretty much.
That's actually a really good point.
StarCraft, Dota, and League is huge in Asia.
And they're way more into, like, look at their culture, like anime, fantasy. They're not so much into pseudo-realism.
They used to be okay
Crossfire
back in
was big.
Yeah, but it seems like they're mostly into free-to-play games. So is it possible maybe seeing CSGO free-to-play in Asia?
I thought we were going to say CSGO free-to-play in 2014. I thought by the end of 2014 we were going to see it. I think the main reason we aren't is due to hacking. Like, look whatever, every time we see like a $3 Steam sale, like how much hacking and matchmaking.
That's probably the biggest problem CS has compared to other games, because it's so easy to hack in CS.
That's another problem with the matchmaking too, is that everyone goes, oh, I'll do matchmaking, and then they get ripped by a cheater, and they're like, screw that, why would I sign up for ESE and pay money to get beat? And they don't realize that anti-cheats exist, and so as new players, that's a tough sell. But you're right, Asia's a huge market that's missing. I know ESEA has gone after Oceania region. It's great to see teams like Vox and Keatstars do as well as they are, because everyone back in their homeland are like, great, we have a team to cheer for. Specifically Brazil, because in 1.6 they had a huge scene.
Yeah, they did. And Fallen still is.
Yeah, he was the guy that led that. It was actually funny at MLG, he was like, oh, I've never lost to a North American team. And then they smoked Cloud9, and everyone was like, wow, he's right. I think Brazil is going to come on strong in the next year or two.
A huge amount of skill at MLG and
yeah, I mean, their executions are, as a team, they're awesome. Individual skill, they're up there. I wouldn't say they're near the top, but as a team, they play awesome.
Yeah, they did. I actually think that the individual skill was up there as well, not compared to the top one teams.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'd say like they're at bottom of the. Well, I mean, Thorn, I think put them at number 8 in his top 10.
Yeah,
somewhere in there. And I would say roughly skill-wise, that's where they all fit. Like it's. Yeah, I mean, I think they show
some good impact, or at least sides of what the South American part can actually do.
Yeah, and again, I think that's awesome for Brazil. Now, if Vox can do the same thing, and in fact, Vox haven't even been winning all their games easily. There's other teams in that region that have been giving them a test, so there's other teams there. But you're right, Asia's the big void, and it's like a dark. It's darkness right now too. I mean, obviously Valve has numbers, and we've seen like server population, but there's no leagues there to even gauge how much interest there is in it. So if ESEA can get there at the very least, I don't know who else would reach out for it. I really don't know who else would take the chance. ESEA is the only one that has that sort of platform to push themselves like that.
Katowice, that was the 100k viewers in Asia, which pushed it over the 1 million viewer.
Yeah.
But 100k out of what?
Yeah, that's significant though, still, like considering how few teams we have from there. So that's still out of okay. So 1 million, what was it, 100k out of our total viewers? Was it out of the 3 million, or was it out of the 1.1 million?
It was 1.1 million, and then.
So that's what is that? That's 10%. If I can do math, is that okay? We're good.
Pretty much.
Okay. So I mean, 10% coming from Asia when we had 0% of the teams from Asia.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably interest there if we can find a way in.
But what is the way in? Because if we're not talking free to play, because that's probably not going to happen due to that much cheating.
Money's the way in. If StarCraft continues to fade off, if League of Legends has a lull, I mean, they'll be interested some way or another.
It seems like StarCraft is hitting the 1.6 thing, where nothing has happened in a couple of years, and the game is slowly dropping off, and it needs a new. Something to.
I don't know. I don't follow StarCraft enough to know, but yeah, I mean, it's become redundant. Every time I tune into a stream, I'm like, oh, I know what this is.
But that was what 1.6 was at the end, basically, because there wasn't a single update pretty much during the last 5 years of 1.6, and then CSGO came, CS Source, and then.
I had this conversation with Karn and Toby Wan actually on the PGL stream. Is like Valve's in a really fragile position. Half-Life 3 confirmed, yada yada. Source 2 is obviously out. Insert jokes about not counting to 3. With Source 2 out, obviously we would expect Half-Life they're gonna do. They'd be stupid not to do it. They're gonna do it at some point. They're just playing the marketing strategy at this point. But if something comes along and gets released, they're in a really fragile position where CS is growing massively. Look what happened in the last year.
Yeah.
If CS hits that peak and then Valve says, "Oh, we're changing everything and moving forward," they jeopardize everything. So they've got to walk a fine line right now on how they plan everything else they're doing as a company based on what they want to do with CS. If they jump away too quickly, it could really hurt the game. And I think they're going to ride this wave of, I guess, momentum or whatever, popularity out as long as they can. But it's, I mean, like I say, it's fragile because if they jump away too soon or if they don't do the timing right, if we hit another lull like we did from 1.6, we have to start from scratch again.
Exactly.
I think that's avoidable. I think they'll be able to read the numbers on the decline. But if they jump too soon, they just pull your feet out from under you and everyone's going to go, what the hell? So,
but it wasn't, back at 1.6, they basically didn't care about it at the end. It seemed like they didn't care.
Oh yeah, no, it was neglected entirely.
Yeah. It seems like they're actually giving a shit about like Dota and CS now.
I think the other aspect of that is microtransactions are a thing now.
That
the
was my
skins.
next point. Exactly, the skins. How do you see the skins influence the whole market? Because especially in Dota, it seems that's pretty much what's funding most of the tournaments now. That's the bundles and companions where you get skins.
Thorin actually made a really good point about how
he's a wise man.
He is a wise. I actually
You can
really
tell
like
him
Thorin.
that.
No, I actually really like Thorin. We get along quite well. I would say, obviously, microtransactions bring money into the game, and more people are going to be interested. Or I shouldn't say more and more people. Valve's going to be more interested in sticking with it because there's more of a profit, and obviously, as a business, that's important. I would like to see it be more resourceful to tournaments and crowdfunding tournaments like the compendiums do.
You know, the 15% actually goes to tournament,
right.
And then
I'd like to see a little
like
bit more of that. The other thing I'd like to see is more of, even if they don't want to do crowdfunding just directly in that regard, at least give us more tournament updates on the in-game menu, because it seems like they only do it for the Valve-supported tournaments, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's more tournaments than just that. And the more we promote it as an esport, the more people are going to be involved in watching it, which adds to the profit on this side of things, which then expands the game to viewership numbers, and it actually has a trickle-down effect. If I go into Twitch and I'm watching Counter-Strike and I don't play it, I'm going to be, maybe I want to go buy this game now. So, I mean, there's benefits there, but I think Valve will continue to support it for a lot longer because they're getting money out of it that they weren't getting at a 1.6.
It's actually weird how they go different ways with Dota and CS because they're both
very different. You'd think it would be a carbon
exactly
copy.
the opposite ways they're going.
Yeah.
Dota is, everything is crowdfunded, whereas CS is their majors, they put in the 100K or whatever.
Do you know how much they make? I don't know numbers directly, but like they're still making enough off that it's like, yeah, I mean it's crazy.
In the Dota, I know you take the international as the big example. They put in the 1 million, 1.6 I think it is, and then everything else is crowdfunding.
So it goes from 1.6 to like 11 million.
Yeah, that was TI4, and then we got the majors in CS, which is just 250.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Which
I don't want to see.
prefer?
I don't want to see an $11 million tournament in CS.
No.
All you're going to see if that happens is everyone going to say, all right, we have a tournament here, and then we have this big one for 11 million. They're going to say, screw here, here, and here. They're not going to play them. They're going to boot camp for this. These tournaments aren't going to get the teams they need. Certain secondary teams have a chance. Fans aren't going to care. They're all going to get hyped for this. And it's just going to become like this ultra hyper focus on one event, and the rest isn't going to matter. And I think that's a problem Dota has. Because I watch, every year I watch the International.
I do.
Could I tell you what the hell's going on right now? I didn't even know about this whole puppy movement to Team Secret until Toby Wan came over and started casting with me.
That's just like 5 months ago.
Yeah, and like that's 5 months. 5 months in Counter-Strike, and I can tell you everything that happens, right? Like, so I think the 250 is good. I could see that being increased. I could see that going to maybe, I'd say 1 million tops.
Yeah.
500,000 would be nice.
What if they made the? What do you think about 4 majors at 1 million instead of the 1 major at 10 million?
4 at 1 million would be fine, to me at least.
That's the Valve funded. And everything else
still, and then everything else is just done by the league and prize pots. And
what do you think about Valve sponsoring events that, like
Valve's
ESL,
careful though; they're very picky.
But that's the problem that Dota is meeting right now. That's everything is Valve funded, kind of with the Compendium bundle, whereas CS is just the majors and everything else they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
How about rewarding the LAN events themselves? So we get more like Copenhagen and.
You want to see
Starler.
Valve support for that, like, or in
Yeah.
terms of a crowdfunding support for that?
Yeah, only crowdfunding for the LAN events.
I think it's reasonable. There needs to be a way for like.
We enjoy LAN events more than the online.
100%, especially with all the DDoSing issues we've had lately. How do you do that? Like, it has to be like a direct skin. Like Copenhagen Games gets to put in a skin, and every sale they get on that skin.
I know the Russian guy. He talked about the events.
Super stuffy.
The events, once Valve funding needs to secure. He was talking about land space and then at least a 3,000 viewer stadium. They had to put that up front before actually even being considered for Valve funding.
Yeah.
So in order to actually get the bundles and companions like Dota get all the time, they need to secure those things beforehand, and then they can get the Valve funding. Because in CS we don't have the you can buy skins.
I don't know that Valve wants to like. I don't know enough about their approach on it. I mean, it sounds like a great idea. It does, and I would like. Again, I think it's awesome. I just don't know that Valve want to invest that much into it. I think they're happy with where they're at right now, and they're happy that communities are doing the job themselves. So, I mean, why change what's not a broken system for them? I agree. I think it's a great idea. I just don't know
If
that
it
Valve
isn't
would want
broken.
to.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, we said that like $4 million majors. I think that's a perfect number, but that still might be enough for the teams to go, all right, we're just going to focus on these 4.
Especially in CS, because we aren't that used to huge prize pools.
Yeah.
As if in Dota, if they now start to regulate it, it falls off a bit. But that might be what it takes for especially Asian teams to actually start, okay, this is where we can actually earn money as well.
If we can find a way into Asia, we win.
I think Asia follows the money. That's my take on them, at least. Especially the big teams. If there's money involved, they can actually make a living of.
Yeah, I mean, look at what StarCraft did for them. Like, they used to be on cereal boxes in StarCraft. So obviously there's like passion for esports there.
Yeah, but there, especially Korea, is the players like Jaedong and God and those guys.
The other thing that's big for them is fighting games. Like, they love this like cartoony anime.
Yeah.
I don't follow any fighters. I don't know if you guys do, but like Street Fighter.
I don't, but I know it's big.
Toby Wan follows a bit of it as well. Of course he does.
What doesn't he follow?
Yeah, he loves that stuff. He follows cosplay as well. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one.
I wanted to ask you about it. Toby Wan. I know him as a Dota caster, and now people have seen him as a CS caster at PGL, which is pretty big now. How is it to cast with someone who hasn't casted CS?
It's fine, because truthfully, in CS, to do a play-by-play role, yeah, you need to know a little bit about the game. Obviously, the more you know, it helps. But you just need to bring a lot of hype.
That's what he does best.
Excitement, yeah, and he's really good at that. The thing you have to like remember about him is he's used to running a lot of streams by himself in Dota, so he'll get carried away and run the whole stream, which is fine. But occasionally I have to like rein him in and be like, all right, settle down. Toby Wan, let Yoda lead the way. Is that even like I don't even know if that's a thing in Star Wars, but I mean, like, again, having me just to bring a little more knowledge in was what they wanted. They just wanted someone that would be able to keep up with his hype and also give a little bit of analysis just to break the round up. So I think he's adapted really well, because it's a whole different, like, Counter-Strike is dead time, climax, time, climax, and Dota's like dead time, holy shit, climax. Yeah. So it's very different. So
has he spent a lot of time adapting to CS? Has he watched a lot of streams and UVs?
Yeah. He's watched like demos and
he has.
He watches all kinds of tutorial videos and stuff. So he puts in the time. Well, like Adren's like smoke plays and stuff, and all the like streamers that do that stuff.
Okay,
we kind of have to wrap this up. I'm gonna have a power outage.
Oh, the battery's going out?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you got any last shoutouts or?
No, I don't think I do.
I think we should do some kind of Sadokist says, hey CSGO Denmark or something. Are you up for that?
Sadokist says what?
Sadokist says, hey CSGO Denmark.
That's fine.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
And something like, just something kind, you know.
Kind?
Whatever you know.
Something kind of taggy.
Tacky. I will say Denmark's definitely a beautiful country. Copenhagen's been impressive. So hello CSGO Denmark. It's good to be here in Copenhagen, and thanks a lot for having me.